monkey ugly, imama like him. It means that a monkey is ugly, but his mother loves him. In the end, this is our home. And you build your home with your own hands, your own resources, and your own. So let's now begin the actual work building our communities, our country, and our continent.
Wow. There's a big thing happening here in Botswana. For the first time, we're hosting a conference by Elevate Africa, but it's very exciting in terms of the narrative, in terms of the purpose of this organization. I have Tim and Dan who will tell us more about it. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely.
Much of the global narrative about Africa has been dominated by the West and dominated by the colonizers. They have done that to serve the interests of the West.
Of the West, yeah.
There's so many good stories to be told about Africa, and Africans can tell them best.
Botswana has demonstrated that it is an exemplar for Africa's next chapter with its stable politics, policy consistency, rule of law, and the way that you govern yourself, how you've managed your natural resources, and you've built a very vibrant sovereign wealth fund.
The quality of governance is the best indicator for all of these social and economic outcomes. You look at when the quality of governance is high, fewer babies die, people live longer, people's life satisfaction is higher, there's more peace and political stability, environmental outcomes are better.
We say that Africa is a continent of kings. And it's important that for us as Africans that we go and study our history.
Welcome to the GrowthWell Podcast, where we tap into a well of knowledge, innovation, and leadership to fuel Africa's growth. Here, we explore thought-provoking insights and expert knowledge that empower individuals and businesses to thrive across the continent. Whether it's personal development or professional advancement, our conversations inspire action and impact. This is GrowthWell, where ideas flow and growth begins. Let's dive in.
Here we go again. This is GrowthWell Podcast coming to you from Gaborone, Botswana. There's a big thing happening here in Botswana. For the first time, we're hosting a conference by Elevate Africa. You'll get to know more about it in a minute. But it's very exciting in terms of the narrative, in terms of the purpose of this organization. But I have Tim and Dan who will tell us more about it. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Yeah. How has it been in Botswana?
My first time.
Yeah, it's a first time. First time.
Very first time. So I'm 24 hours in. Fantastic so far.
Excellent. Fantastic. Yourself, is it the first time then?
Same here. And I'm loving it. I'm really loving it.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. just your name, then your full name and your role at Chandler and just how it relates to Elevate Africa for us.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So I'm Tim Hanstad. I'm the vice chair of the Chandler Foundation. Mm-hmm. I also sit as a board member on two of our sister organizations who are also here for the conference. That is the Singapore-based Chandler Institute of Governance and the Cape Town-based Chandler Institute of Justice.
Oh, fantastic. No, excellent. And then you tell us about the partnership later on.
Oh, yeah. Well, I could go now.
But no, go ahead. So while you're here, relative to Elevate Africa.
So we're a proud partner of Elevate Africa. And Daniel will tell you more about Elevate Africa.
Sure.
And one of the things he will tell you is about three of their pillars. And one of those pillars is about governance and leadership. Mm-hmm. So at the Chandler Foundation and the other Chandler entities, we are all about governance. Mm-hmm. We observe that governments are the most important lever for determining the social and economic outcomes of people. Mm-hmm. All around the world. And that's certainly true in Africa. And so we as an organization, as a philanthropy, as a social impact group of organizations, our goal is to try to improve the performance of governments. Mm-hmm. And not for just its own sake, but ultimately for the good of its citizens. And we overlap in terms of priorities and objectives with Elevate Africa, because they are also enhancing that and bringing attention to the importance of governance and leadership and about changing the narratives around that for Africa, the perceptions of this and other perceptions of Africa, looking at those perceptions and also trying to change the realities. So we're delighted to be here and to be partnering with Elevate Africa.
No, fantastic, especially around governance. I'm sure we have a lot to say about governance in Africa. Okay, Dan. Yeah, and then how do you pronounce Daniel Ikuenobe? How do I pronounce
Close
that?
enough. Just assume the U for a W and then you get it right. Yes. Ikuenobe.
Okay. Ikuenobe.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
fantastic. Yeah.
Pleasure to be here. So I'm Daniel Ikuenobe. I'm the inaugural CEO for Elevate Africa. And so Elevate Africa was founded by a first-class monarch in Nigeria, His Royal Majesty Ogiame Atuwatse III, and the Queen Consort for the Warri Kingdom, Her Royal Majesty Olori Atuwatse III.
Atuwatse.
Atuwatse.
I practiced that
earlier.
Atuwatse.
Yeah. So when the king ascended the throne in 2021, it was a big deal in Nigeria, and quite a bit of reconciliation in the community, and began to do a lot of development work through their Warri Foundation around 3 pillars: education, education, empowerment, and environment. While they were doing all of this good work in the environment or in their community, they felt that the wider African narrative was a constraint to whatever good thing they were doing and how it was being perceived and received, and felt that it was important for us to lift the rest of Africa in the process of doing that. And so the whole idea of Elevating Africa was born. And the vision is using the power of storytelling as a tool for systems change across 3 pillars: governance and leadership, because we believe that leaders define a clear vision and direction for the rest of the continent to move along. Second is investment and trade, because we believe that when you trade with each other, it brings communities together and shows that economies and enterprises are sustainable. And the third is our culture and our heritage, because the things that define us, our history, our stories, our movies, our music, our fashion, our food, all of these things define who we are and gives us a sense of identity and pride. And these things fuse together to give us, to make Africa a vibrant continent. And so we have started doing this, and what we're seeing happen is that this is birthing a movement that is somewhat becoming a soft power platform for impact. So I'm leading they brought me in based on my experience in leading large-scale transformation programs and change, and thought that we could help to myself and other experts, because it's not just me. It's a bit of a collective. It's like a clarion call. Can we get everybody who can do something for us to pitch in and cause a difference on the continent? And so I came on board to lead the initial charge.
Just this year, right? Was it this year?
No, it was last year.
Last year. Okay. And where is it based geographically? Is it based
Abuja?
It's based in Abuja.
Based in Abuja, but we are our footprint is gradually increasing. Yeah.
Okay, and it's quite interesting coming from a king. We've got quite a lot of kings and chiefs across Africa.
Yeah.
And traditionally, they'll be there in their region or their village and happy to deal with their people. I mean, what sparked? I'm sure you had conversations with the king and the queen.
Yes.
What was the trigger to come up with such an African noble project?
This is part of the things that.
And he was quite young as well. When I read, it's like he was really Nigeria's.
If you ask the king his age, he will tell you that he's ageless, because that is the moment you ascend the throne, you are ageless. So one is, we say that Africa is a continent of kings. And it's important that for us as Africans that we go and study our history. In the 14th century, and when they are as far back as the 14th century, and at those times there were already interactions with Western kingdoms that were no bigger or better than the African kingdoms. So these kingdoms existed historically and across across the continent. They're talking about the Warri Kingdom, the Benin Empire, the Oyo Empire, or you're talking about the various whether it's the Zulu Empire,
South Africa.
You have all of these, and they have their heritage, they have their stories, and in some cases, some people have preserved their history and their sense of identity. In others, they have not. The way that this particular kingdom has been, he rose to the throne hereditary. It is the first son, so he's king because he's first son of a former king, right? And he was raised to be a king. So if you meet him, you see that he thinks and talks like a king, carries himself like a king. And what we are hoping, and I'm sure this is conversations with him, is that hope to inspire and to also challenge all of Africa. We are a continent of kings, that before we were slaves, we were warriors. Before we were slaves, we were kings, we were entrepreneurs. We used to trade with the international community. We trade with ourselves. This is part of our DNA. Even within our culture, when they talk about corruption is alien to our culture. And like I said, doing corruption is not a Soswan word, is an English word. That means that for it to come, it means and you look at it, villages growing up, they will put the wares in the village and they will go home. You come, you pick what you want, you put the money there, you walk away. That's part of our history. And so one of the things that we see that we need to do is to then recapture that history and remind ourselves of who we are as a people. Yeah. So they're doing this is to say, look, it's good for us, but it's also important that we have other people who are also rising, because the best of the rest will help us to become the best of ourselves.
And also, I suppose, it's also to address some of apart from the narrative as seen by the West or the global community, it's also to address these capabilities like leadership and governance. And that's how you partnered with Chandler Foundation. And, we always just see Africa as sometimes as a lost cause. As a lost cause, things are very difficult. I mean, talking about governance, we just saw, I think there's the president of Cameroon, he's 92 years old. I don't know whether President Museveni has already won the elections as well. So the story goes on. I just want to challenge you to say, why bother?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you pull out those particular examples, because you could also point out lots of other examples that are positive examples.
Yes, yeah.
And there are so many, including right here in Botswana. I mean, you've talked about leadership and governance. Botswana is a leader on the continent, and the story of Botswana is not reached, I think, the West largely. And I could point to you many negative examples in the West, and yet somehow the broader narratives aren't dominated by those negative examples. So I would just I would point to that much of the global narrative about Africa has been dominated by the West and dominated by the colonizers, and they have done that whether consciously or subconsciously or some combination of both, to serve the interests of the West.
Of the West, yeah.
And those need to be actively challenged and replaced with a narrative that comes from Africans and that is highlighting, not ignoring what is negative. As I said, we certainly have many negative aspects in the West, and maybe even increasingly so. But there's so many good stories to be told about Africa, and Africans can tell them best.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think back to you, Dan. We're here in Gaborone, Botswana, and there's a big thing happening for the next 2 days.
Yeah.
Maybe let's just ground as to why Gaborone. I understand the previous was in South Africa. There's always this thing about
Abuja.
Abuja was in Abuja. Yeah, there's this thing about the smaller countries. We always feel like everything is, when you watch CNN, the African voices, it's either Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa. We feel ignored. So this is why this is special as well. And that's why we also want this mouthpiece to go out there. Is this what's in there for the smaller countries like Botswana, Zimbabwe, Namibia? So yeah, why did you land in Botswana for this conference this time around? And then you can go on to tell us about the objectives of the conference as well. Yeah.
So we started out in Abuja, and it was great. We had a good, good area of speakers, both in the governance side of things, in the investment side of things, and culture side of things. And we had some former presidents, the likes of Tim Hanstad was also there, and a number of other people, and it was really good. And some other countries wanted us to come. We had good invites from some countries in West Africa, and we said, look, West Africa is to West Africa, and we have to go somewhere else.
Absolutely.
And one of the thoughts is using our convenings as a platform for binding the continent together. And so we like to say one person, one project, one place at a time.
Okay.
And so we operate in the binder space, bringing these various stakeholders together. So we felt if we come down South Africa, we're increasing the wider Africa footprint to say, and all of that. And the second reason why we chose Botswana, it's because Botswana has demonstrated that it is an exemplar for the for Africa's next chapter, with its, of course, stable politics, policy consistency, the way rule of law and the way that you govern yourself, how you've managed your natural resources, and you've built a very vibrant sovereign wealth fund. And you see that, every country, no matter how great, has its challenges. Yeah. So that notwithstanding, Botswana is an exemplar, and we feel if we are talking about Africa's next chapter, where else would we do it than on a country, on a nation that is an exemplar in that space. Now that is one. Secondly, I would like to also say that we've in our vision for Elevate Africa, we are thinking Pan-African and not just one location. We launched a fellowship earlier, after our last convening, and then we commenced earlier in the year. We had, after about 3,500 applications from across the continent, we selected 17 distinguished fellows from 13 different countries.
The demand was high.
And we are afraid for this year's demand, actually. Wow. We are really, because we're already getting a lot of signals. We are really scared for this year's demand. And they represent all the sub regions of the continent. We have Egypt, we have Tunisia, we have Ethiopia, we have Uganda, we have Kenya, we have Nigeria, we have Ghana, Cameroon, Comoros Islands, Zambia, Malawi, South Africa, Dimension, Namibia, Senegal. It's Comoros Island and Senegal, the person's the same person. But, we have a good distribution across all these nationalities. I know you say no Botswana. But just to say that for us, it's about trying to make Africa smaller. It's what we want to do. So that, and now all those who have come for this conference will say that I now have family, I have friends in Botswana. They come Nigeria, I have family friends in Nigeria. If we do Kenya next time or something like that, we can say we have family friends in Kenya. And that way it's easier to do business with friends.
That's true.
So let's begin to create the platforms that allow friendships and exchanges to take place very more naturally. Yeah.
No, I love that. And then the objectives and the theme of this specific one?
So the theme this year is Africa's next chapter. And again, we're still operating along our 3 pillars, which is governance and leadership, investment and trade, and then culture and heritage. And so we have 2 days. Day 1, we'll have a governance and policy roundtable that is being anchored by the Chandler Foundation, the Chandler Institute of Governance.
Okay.
And so we'll be speaking to one former president, one head of a subnational on the continent, and one somebody who's operating within, who's a former minister or who's a current minister, 7th minister. And so we'll have those conversations going to just understand what the issues are with regards to governance, how you build high performance governments, and then how do you tell strong national stories. So that will be discussed there. There's going to be a panel on natural resources and sovereign wealth. We have some panels on payments, cross-border payments, and trade. So we have some fintech companies that are going to be part of it. Visa, Bridge, PKVS was invited, but they're not able to make it. And a few others, representative from the Afri-Exim Bank with their PAP system, who will be speaking on their PAP, their payment and all of that. And we have some conversations around culture and the creative industry. There we have some actors who have African descent. There is a young man who did a movie that went viral in Nigeria called Buchi. To Kill a Monkey. Okay. And so he's going to be there.
And he's going to be here, yeah.
Yeah, so we have a number of them. And then we have Moki Makura from Africano Filter, who's also going to be part of the creative thing. So we have, it's a mix of very important people having very important conversations. But we'd like to say that for us, we say we want to transform Africa and the way the world sees her. So these conversations are going to be translated to actions in the end. Yeah,
it's a good point you say that, because my next question was be around with the collaboration. I don't know how long the collaboration was since inception. Do we see any seeds of impact? Do you see? I mean, and I'm saying this with absolute honesty and candor to say, Africa is sometimes you are not short of projects.
Yeah.
We have AU, we have SADC, we've got all these, at some stage we had a peer something, where countries were supposed to work together.
Peer review
things,
yeah.
So all these initiatives have been there, I don't remember Thabo Mbeki's days talking about the Africa Renaissance.
And all those Africa Rising.
So we're always we're always, So what makes this a little bit different? And maybe let me start with you to say, from the partnership, what do you see as I know it's fairly young, but green shoots maybe here and there.
Yeah, well, actually I could point to one small example that relates to this room and the podcast we're talking about, and that is in terms of green shoots. So 2 of my colleagues, the head of the Cape Town-based Chandler Institute of Justice and the Singapore-based Chandler Institute of Governance, these 2 institutions work with governments in very practical, pragmatic ways to help improve their capacity and performance. They were to be here talking with us. They're not here because they have meetings with various people in the Botswana government.
Oh, okay.
Because of at least interest from the government in getting their services, and of course we are interested in helping the government of Botswana accelerate its priorities around good governance. So that's a very small example, but I think it shows at least something's happening. This is not just a talk shop. The talking sometimes is important. The media, the storytelling is very important. But as you asked, what is it going to lead to in terms of specific action? Already there are things coming out of it. But I want to emphasize too that importance of story and narrative, because Daniel earlier mentioned systems change, about wanting to transform systems, change systems. And if you look at the literature on systems change, we often think about changes in policies or resource flows or laws, particular practices. But what's at the root of any key systemic change is a change in mindset.
Yeah.
Because if you don't get that change in mindset, the other things that are maybe more visible about changes in institutions, in resource flows, are either won't happen or won't be sustained. So, and that change in mindset comes from narrative change and comes from the power of storytelling, and storytelling again and again and again, and from credible storytellers. So it's often difficult when one is looking at any kind of systems change or systems shifting to say, oh, it happened there. It's
a pattern.
It's slow.
Of
it's a pattern,
yeah.
or it sometimes reaches a tipping point where you can only really see it after it's happened, or truly see it. So I see this as all part of something that we're building towards something bigger. And it's not just Elevate Africa. It's certainly not just the Chandler Institutes.
Yeah.
Some of the other things that you already mentioned are also things that can be contributing to this change. So I'm bullish I'm bullish on the future of Africa for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned earlier you were comparing Africa, or the narrative about Africa or Africa's progress, with China or with India. These are places I'm very familiar with. I've worked a lot in both countries. I live in India. So I've been in your country for 24 hours. I've lived in India for many years, 10 years. And I would guess that even most Africans' view of India as being a place that's, much more developed, doing better on the world stage. But I can tell you, if you arrived in the city where I live, and I won't even mention it now, but it's a major Indian city. Your impression of it compared to
Gaborone.
Arriving here in Botswana would be, Botswana is doing so much better. The infrastructure here, the cleanliness here, the energy just one feels surpasses that what's happening in India. And that's not a knock on India, because India, I love.
No, it's also progressing.
I love India, and India is doing well and taking its rightful place on the global stage. But don't compare yourself as being somehow as worse than India. I think there's much more actually, or at least as much, to be reasons to be bullish about Africa, including your youth. Most places around OECD countries are wringing their hands about their aging populations, and are going to, those aging populations are going to create big problems, and already are creating big problems for their economies. You've got a youth bulge here. India has one too. That's a big asset. And yet, even within Africa, I find that people often talk about the number of youth as being somehow a problem.
A problem, with a median of 19. And,
rather than an asset.
The youth,
So these are things that, is a glass half full or half empty?
I think it's also I personally believe that Botswana could be a lot further than what it is. Again, I always go back to the founding fathers, the democracy, I don't know if you heard about the quota system. Talking about indigenous.
Yeah.
Botswana almost had its own democratic credentials, but because they were not researched, they were not packaged. A lot of the research and the books that talk about the tribal council quota system, actually Europeans who wrote about it. So that's why, for me, this project, it's fundamental. And I believe a proud Botswana, getting its narrative right. And the question I was going to ask, which will come later on, is how the Elevate Africa project can contribute or even bring capability for us to be able to deal with the narrative around natural diamonds, which for me, we didn't position very well, that it got eaten away by lab-grown, when there's such a beautiful story around a democracy that used diamonds to develop its people. That's that. Very few people argue with that. But back to you, Dan, in terms of the green shoots. He say, and what do you feel has so far sort of promising from Elevate Africa perspective?
First of all, hope. I see a resurgence of hope. It's important that you believe in yourself, and not only believe in yourself, believe in your future, that the future is bright and it can be different. There's a popular story that Philippe Megwali tells once of his father asking him, the warrior and the story, who is greater? And he told the father, no, this is the warrior. Father shook his head and said, no, it's a story. He said, the one who controls the story controls your future.
Yeah. You
can tell the son of a king that he's a pauper, and you walk into a room, you will take the back seat, and there will be no battles had. You will not draw, no swords drawn. You will just sit down at the back, but understanding who we are, mastering ourselves, both our strengths and our weaknesses, representing ourselves stronger on the global stage. I think that's what the first thing I'll say is hope. Second is that we are creating a platform now that is beginning to see different capabilities, talents, and people of means and like minds show up to say, yes, this is not being driven by any government. This is driven by Africans, right? And we are the ones, in a sense, calling everybody to the table to say, let's talk. So there's a bit of it's a social movement of some sort that, like I said, it's
a momentum that's picking up.
Yes, it's picking up. So a platform for a soft power platform is evolving, and it's a movement that is coming, and an idea that is being garnered. The other thing is, like I said, is making Africa smaller, that the linkages have been established. I know how many people are meeting with themselves now and saying, okay, let's have deeper conversations. And so we're creating that platform that allows that to happen. So that is another great thing. The third thing is we are mapping and showing opportunities in various countries. In the last couple of weeks, we have spotlighted Botswana like no one else has. Oh yes. The amount of we did stuff on the Pula, we did stuff on sovereign wealth, and it's on. And people are reaching out to us on social media saying we never knew Botswana was like this.
Really,
and we've done that because, like I said, one person, one project, one place at a time. So we are coming here. So it's only natural for us to amplify Botswana's voice. And post this event, it's gonna be even more, because people hear more about Botswana. My hope and prayer is that when they come in, I hope that we don't, like we say in my country, you don't fall our hand. So that's that. But let me speak quickly on shoots. From the last convening, we launched, or we then unveiled the Pan-African Fellowship, which for the fellows, it has been an amazing experience for them. They graduate here in Botswana, and so they are all around. So they're going to be graduating at this event, and we'll be showcasing some of their projects, and those who attend will get to see them. Post this convening, we'll be we're calling it the Gaborone communique. It will come out at the end of it. We will declare it. But part of it is speaking to the commitment of Elevate Africa and the Chandler Group on helping African countries, beginning with the ones that are rated within the Good Governance Index, on crafting their national stories. So we have a more holistic and powerful national stories for these countries. The other thing which we will be announcing will be an accelerator, which will be a fintech accelerator, which we'll be doing in partnership with one of the top partners globally and all of that. And so we're looking to see how we can push, because Africa's fintech industry is the most developed in the world.
It is,
and it's not been talked about. So we want to put a bit of pressure.
It's only Besa, which is making lots of noise, isn't it? But so, there's a lot more happening.
Yes. So we want to now begin to organize the fintech ecosystem and then see how we can push that for scale. And it's a nice story to tell. One more story we can tell is the fact that Africa has the largest number of presidents and vice presidents anywhere in the world. I think our last count, if you can do your Google search, probably how many, like 39 or so.
Is it?
Yes, it's a lot. There's no other region in the world that has a number of presidents and female presidents and vice presidents that we have produced. There's so much happening on our continent because we just look at those things and we don't capture them and communicate them. So some things.
And the world is always ready to pick up the bad stories from us, isn't it? That's ever ready,
But we're happy if anyone can tell me the exact figure numbers, but I know that it's very exciting.
Okay. No, great.
I can tell you the number from my country, and we're 250 years old. How many women presidents or women vice presidents?
Have you had? Zero. Yeah. No, you are quite a case study. Especially now.
And yet the narrative, but the broader narrative about the U.S., again, is still generally quite positive, but yet, there are those negative, and I think that is a big blemish, but it's not a blemish that is generally part of the global narrative about the United States.
I think and again, relating to Botswana, I'm going back to the diamond story so that, as you said, and I just like the spotlighting of Botswana because that will really excite the nation. The nation is really, the moods are really quite subdued at the moment because of the current economic climate. I mean, 2 years of negative GDP growth, it's never happened. And this is the country that's always been glorified as the blue-eyed boy of Africa. So our mood is a bit... So we need that. And the big thing is obviously diversification, which the Ministry of Finance and government are trying to push, and you'll hear more about it. But what I want to going back to the diamond story, because, I've got a friend in Europe who was telling me how, when he's into luxury products. And he was saying that in places like LA and Hollywood, people don't know these things about it. Actually, some of them buy diamonds, but they don't know where they come from. So you're saying he actually flew and came here to come and make an argument. It's like, you guys have such a good story, but they're not using it. So I just want to find out in terms of just linking to a practical case, because the big drive now is to position Botswana natural diamond story better. And this is the role of people like Pat, who are helping government to try and package the story, because, Pat was at DBS on the marketing division. So she was part of that type of thing. So an exercise like that. And again, just to blow it outside Botswana, Africa's got all the critical minerals for transitioning. We've got all these good things. The best beef in Africa, or arguably in the world, comes from Botswana. But it's only us who know. Steve Harvey came here and he's actually published in his show in the States that the best beef that he's tasted is back in Botswana. He's made a couple of trips here before. But as you said, the narrative is not there. People know so I don't know, just to give an example of a practical of how Elevate Africa can contribute, obviously, from a Botswana, but I know that you are speaking from a broader Africa perspective, how it can assist.
So I think that, one of the challenges about resource-rich countries, particularly those who are mono-economies like Botswana, is there becomes over-dependency in that one commodity. And then there's a bit of a complacency that comes with that because you think it's always going to be there. And I know that part of the reasons the sovereign wealth was there was to build that, but of course, the focus of the sovereign wealth fund was more infrastructure development and social than thinking towards the future,
long term.
Yeah, but now there is now a burning platform, and it's a good problem. That. And I see that you're running a series of labs to envision a new future and the various sectors that you're looking towards. So of course, diversification. And because of how content and comfortable that Botswana had been, it was very closed as a nation. It wasn't very open, very much open.
That's true.
And so there is a need to open. So it's an opportunity, but there's also a risk associated with it. Change will either happen to you or you plan for it. So what I hear you say now that we need to plan for the change that's going to happen so you don't erode your culture. In order to diversify, it will be a very uncomfortable experience for Botswana and Botswanans. So I think that in order to experience growth, there is need for focused, organized chaos. Because without chaos and discomfort, you cannot experience growth. But there is need to tap into the strength of Botswana, which is in its good governance, to ensure that its order and structure chases that chaos. Because if the chaos becomes overwhelming, then the outcome will be very negative. If you need enough chaos for growth, but if you have too much chaos, it's destructive. If you have too much order, it causes stagnation.
Limits. Yeah.
So what you want is sufficient chaos, but then your order should just be keeping in step with that chaos, so that as you're going into more investments, you're bringing your governance, your policy, and your structure into that to ensure that the transactions are well structured and there's equity, there's transparency, there's accountability, and all of that is happening while you're having speed, at the same time. So it's going to be a bit of a yin yang. So two levels: the chaos, which will be uncomfortable, but also the work towards ensuring that they're having rigor in putting a proper governance framework around that growth that you're experiencing, while thinking towards diversification.
No, awesome. And Tim, I mean, you've written the Wall Street Journal and you've traveled quite a bit. And before we end, I just want your a bit of wisdom in terms of how you, as Dan said, and how do you see this new Botswana trajectory happening?
Yeah, well, your story, while diamonds may take as centerpiece role in that story, I think it's governance. I think at the end it's governance. There's lots of countries that have rich natural resources, and economists around the world talk about the natural resource curse. Is how have you avoided the natural resource curse through good governance? And that good governance is what can help that diversification. But I think leaning into that governance, and of course, there's always room for improvement. So one cannot rest on one's laurels in terms of governance. You mentioned earlier that as a proud person from Botswana, you can see, well, yes, but we can do better here and here.
Yeah, we can.
Of course, and every country can do better, but recognize how you got to. For example, Daniel earlier referenced this index. So Chandler has the Chandler Institute of Governance has a Chandler Good Government Index.
Okay, just like Mo Ibrahim, you do this own index.
But beyond Africa. So
the global,
ours goes to. I mean, it's not a knock on the Mo Ibrahim Governance Index. It's really important. And by the way, just a shout out to Mo Ibrahim for raising and elevating the issue of governance
and leadership
as an African who's elevated this, because again, at the end of the day, the quality of governance is the best indicator for all of these social and economic outcomes. You look at the quality of governance, when the quality of governance is high, fewer babies die, people live longer, people's life satisfaction is higher, there's more peace and political stability, environmental outcomes are better. I mean, there's just so many things that flow from good governance. And good governance is not we shouldn't think of it in binary. It's either bad or good. It's on a spectrum, and our index tries to measure that across more than 30 factors. But Botswana overall score is the third highest in all of Africa. And there's that points to its strengths. It also would, if you dig down into the sub-factors, would point to areas where maybe some improvements can be made. So building on one's strengths, I think, both at a personal level and at a country level, is the key thing. You know, there's a whole movement around, it's kind of a self-help movement around strengths finders, that where the focus or the observation is that as we try to make ourselves better, we often think about what are our weaknesses and try to improve on our weaknesses. And we actually spend too much time on that and not enough on identifying our strengths and building on those strengths. Anyway, I think this issue of governance is not getting enough attention, generally, not just on the continent, but around the world. And I think if there was more philanthropy and more people who are trying to make the world a better place, we're actually, more of those were focused on how can we improve governance, we would be doing much, much better. So I'm very fortunate that our founder, our donor, our principal, who's a New Zealand-born, Singapore-based businessman, had the vision to see this, that about the importance of governance, and not just say, yeah, governance is important, but then think about what are the practical steps that are needed to help, and how can we, build on the lessons that are around the world and adapt them. Each country has, it's not like there's a cookie cutter formula.
No, sure.
Or that the success of one country can be exported to another. But there are important principles to be learned. And there's important principles to be learned from just looking at a national story. So Singapore is one that I would point to, because Singapore gained independence at about the same time period that most African countries gained independence, and that many of colonized states achieved independence. And if you compare where Singapore was in the early and mid 1960s, I mean, we often think of it now as like, well, of course, Singapore had all these advantages. At the time, it didn't have advantage. It had no natural resources. It had ethnic conflict. There were several different ethnic, and they were at each other's throats. It was highly corrupt. And from where it came from, there are, I think, lessons to be learned from that. In similar ways, Botswana.
And you think governance was at the center of what
Absolutely.
Ikuenobe.
Absolutely.
You reckon?
Absolutely. Governance was absolutely at the center of that, and including his approach to corruption, which was very, very strong. I mean, there was censure. And actually, just to mention something about corruption is just one of the important factors around governance, but it tends to be the best predictor of an overall good governance. That is, if you look at all the various factors and say which one is the best predictor, a low level of corruption is key. And the Singapore story, I think, bears that one out too. But also, it was about how do we create unity among these different ethnic groups, which, again, Singapore, great example of that. And Singapore has done a very good job of crafting a national story.
Isn't it? They got the narrative right. Earlier on.
And they tell it. I mean, you fly Singapore Airlines. If you've ever flown with Singapore Airlines, you can sit there and punch and watch the video of Singapore's national story. And they do a good job of crafting it and creating a brand about it. Botswana could do the same thing because you have a very good story to tell. And part of the story is about the strengths of where you came from, but part of it's about the aspirations of the vision for the future that you have. You know, the United States, I think, also had a story, but we had aspirations at the beginning, and there were many, many negative things you could point to it, even at the aspirations, on how much hypocrisy was in those aspirations. But the story of America is a story of an experiment. And an experiment where our aspirations were always higher than where our realities were. Always higher than where our realities were. Yeah. And it's about...
But people bought onto the story.
But they bought onto the story, which part of it was buying onto the aspirations and then, you know, slowly moving towards those aspirations. And
Wonderful, wonderful. Just as we conclude on your side, Tim, anything that we think we missed that's quite critical, and just last message to our viewers in the region?
Yeah, so we were talking earlier, and we didn't get into the before the formal interview started, about the importance of property and property rights. So I just mentioned part of that because I think in terms of the economic transformation that one wants to see in any country, it's hard to look at any country that has achieved prosperity and peace over long periods of time without having built a system of land property rights that creates clarity, that creates lower barriers to entry. And I think many African countries are behind, generally behind on that, where one can look across the continent, and it, of course, every country is different, but there are so many people making their primary livelihood from the land who yet they lack secure legal rights to the land on which they depend. And that is a governance problem at the end of the day, because it's up to the government to create a system that will document both the spatial aspects and the ownership, or whatever the legal rights are to land, and provide clarity and provide a system for resolving disputes. Across the world, in middle and high income countries, the biggest part of the average person's asset portfolio is land and property.
Really?
In the United States, it's certainly true. So if you're looking at social mobility and the ability to accumulate wealth, we often think of the stock market. For most people, it's actually land and real estate.
Property,
starting with, for most people who don't make their living from land, owning their own house and the land on which it sits. So anyway, that's one part of where I think many African countries can do a better job. And you started from a very negative place because you had colonial powers who came in and who defined who could own land.
The tenure system,
the whole tenure system. And it was based on systems from where they came and from which they could create the rules and then benefit from those rules at the expense of the local populations. So, but that can be changed, and creating systems like that. I would point to Rwanda actually as a place that has built a pretty good land property rights system that's created clarity and done it in a relatively short period of time. Anyway,
No,
that's
excellent.
just one
that's
example.
good. That's a good
There's
example.
much
It's
to
a
be learned.
hugely debatable issue here. And what's unique about Botswana is that we've got such a huge land mass.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a villager who hasn't got a job, but, plants, crops, he's got cattle and goats on the other side, but he's got a 10 hectare or a 5 hectare land.
Yeah.
And he's not using that land. So you can imagine when the system starts working, that would be massive for this country because it's huge. I mean, one part why I left the UK to come here is because in Botswana there's so much space. I felt crowded.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you tell people in other countries, like, okay, I've got a 5 hectares. I mean, in Canada or in other countries, when you got 5 hectares, like, oh man, you got land. Let alone the cattle farmers, because here you got, 6 kilometer by 6 kilometer land for a farm is very normal, and a lot of people have got that.
Yeah.
But like you said, they're not leveraging the land to be able to, use it for as part of a wealth. Yeah.
Because they can't, because the government hasn't created that
System,
legal and institutional infrastructure. You couldn't find a farmer in the United States or North America or in Europe who could make a go of it if they couldn't have the value of their land on their balance sheet.
That's true.
You wouldn't do it. And yet we expect smallholder farmers across the continent to do that.
Excellent. Dan,
Yes, sir.
closure and this exciting conference for the next 2 days. Just your last comments and just the message you want to send to Botswana and the region. And then the communique that will be coming in a few weeks.
I would say that we have a huge opportunity with the upheavals or the seeming deglobalization that is going on. I think the world is at a pivotal point. And it is an opportunity for us. With the reduction in aid, development aid, and all the flows that were coming before, I think it presents for us an opportunity for agency. And we need to encourage ourselves to take more agency for our future, to work for the interest of our countries on the continent, to begin to see how going together will do well for the individuals. In order for us to come, people have come from all over, and you would agree with me that intra-Africa travel is more expensive
That's very expensive.
than other climes. And so we have to begin to speak about open skies and what will allow us to do that. Understand the reason why countries within our continental institutions are hesitant to sign on to that and make it happen and provide the necessary comfort for them to do so that our investments can start going there. You cannot have trade without proper logistics and transportation. So let's trade with ourselves. Our internal market is significant, so let's do that. Let's solve the open skies. Let's solve the issues around payments. And let's begin to work towards, in the end, African, you look at the dynamics abroad where people going, in some cases, become worried whether they'll be given a visa or not. We don't need it.
Yeah.
Because our lands are fertile. So we can sustain ourselves throughout, we can feed ourselves. Secondly, our environment, we have so much beautiful scenery that we go to and we enjoy as environment. And I think that it's important that we begin to appreciate and nurture these things that we have, but open the opportunities within the continent for it. And then once we revive all of these things intentionally, take agency for our future, the rest, they say, it will just be history. But we have so much going for us as a people, and we just take agency and work carefully. It's a marathon. Drip strategy. We just do it one little bit at a time. And when we get those small things, leave the big things. When we get those small things right, we should celebrate ourselves. There's a a small Nigerian saying that I said to someone, the person was laughing, but I'll say it in Pidgin English here. He say, I'll say it in Pidgin. He said, "Monkey ugly, imama like him."
What does it mean?
I'll say it in English. It's actually English, Pidgin English. It means that a monkey is ugly, but his mother loves him.
Ah, okay.
Right? In the end, this is our home. And you build your home with your own hands, your own resources, and your own. So let's now begin the actual work of building our communities, our country, and our continent.
Wow. That's really beautiful. You two gentlemen have made me a lot more positive than an hour ago about Africa, because I'm a consultant. They say consultants are contrarians. They're always challenging things. But that vision of that Africa, especially our youth. I didn't get to ask you about the contribution of youth, how they participate in Elevate Africa because of time, but we can do that next time. But otherwise, thank you very much, Tim, Vice Chair at Chandler Foundation. And Dan, CEO of Elevate Africa, thank you very much, and good luck with the conference. Hope it goes smoothly and goes well. And and I'm hoping that we can meet again, maybe when you come to Botswana next time, and we can catch up with the podcast. Yeah, so there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you got the insights about Elevate Africa and what its vision is for Africa. Very exciting. Like I said, I'm a bit more positive, and I hope you are as well. Thank you very much, and see you next time. Bye. Cheers, guys. Bye.